This podcast is a production of Digital and Creative Media Works. To help support us, head to dcm.works to find links to our other show notes, Patreon, and merch. Hey guys, welcome back to the Arthritis Podcast, official podcast of Digital and Creative Media Works. My name is David, DCM, creative director, lead writer, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Ben.
Hi.
We're here, we've got the new lighting.
It probably looks the same.
It looks probably the same, just a little bit better.
Just a little nicer.
It's going to make color grading easier. It's going to be a prettier show for you.
We have our large beers.
We've got our
very
comically
large beers. Here's the new lights.
Cheers to the new lights. These are as tall as the lights. They're fucking massive.
Yep, these are big beers.
If you want to see a picture of them, go to Ben's Twitter, or the DCM Works Twitter.
Yeah, you can see what everything looks like from my perspective.
From what it's like
from
to be the man in the chair.
Yeah.
The sweaty, unpleasant, tired, poor chair.
Covered in fucking cat hair. It's atrocious.
It's a tough life for a Ben. But this week, Ben, we are gathered here today. I started it like it's church.
We're gathered here today to celebrate the life of
to celebrate the life. Oh, and you choked like a referee.
Choked on my own
your
joke.
Own bullshit.
Yeah.
This week we're talking about the humor of Tim Minchin. Specifically, Tim Minchin's. I
so fucking rock.
I tried to say comedy special, so fucking rock, and then all my words started happening at the same time.
It's not a comedy special. It's a show. It's a
show.
So, a musical show.
The impetus for this is that we did an episode last week about Bo Burnham,
and we talked a lot about...
And everyone was like, guys, you talked a lot about Tim Minchin. You should do an episode on Tim Minchin.
And
so here we are.
We seem to like him.
Doing an episode on Tim Minchin because we're nothing if not sellouts. If you sneeze and it sounds like a TV show or a movie, we're going to fucking review it on... We're going to analyze it, the shit out of it on the show because we don't have any integrity.
The meaning of your sneeze.
Meaning of your sneeze. It was Edgar Wright's plan the whole time. So, Tim Minchin, do you want to give us like a brief overview of the kind of performer that he is? Because he's big in Australia, but he's not like a massive international star.
Well, he's Australian, so
he's Australian.
That gives a lot of sort of context straight off the bat. He does a lot of just comedy music. We brought him up when we talked about Bo Burnham because they do similar things. They just do them
differently.
Yeah, they just do them differently. Yeah. Tim is more of a... I think... it's hard to like pigeonhole them because they're both musicians. We went over this last week. I don't think that can be.
But I think in a lot of ways, like Bo Burnham, obviously, because Tim Minchin was around before Bo, and I think that a lot of Bo's inspiration comes from that. I think he said that before as well. Maybe I don't want to misquote Bo, but like you can tell that there's definitely some similarities between them in all of the ways that you'd expect, but it doesn't feel like they're copying each other or like they're doing the same stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Tim like Bo Burnham is like a... he pretends to be like a young aspiring artist, depressed, who doesn't know what they're doing with their life, whereas Tim Minchin is like a middle-aged, like married to his first girlfriend, who doesn't know what he's doing with his life,
who's like they're the opposite ends of the spectrum, basically.
But at the same time they're fairly similar.
I'm gonna open that window. You keep wheeling.
I keep talking. Oh fuck, you're putting a lot of stress on me.
Edit this out.
You never know.
It's really good.
Yeah, so to mention, he's Australian, and he has a lot of... Oh, David is closing the window.
I said open.
Oh, okay.
It's hot in these new lights, man.
Yeah, it is. So, I can't run this on my own, David. I need you. I need your support.
And I need you now tonight.
I'm gonna wait. We're gonna...
And I need you more than ever.
All right, David's coming back.
If you only
Welcome back,
hold
David.
me tight.
I can't
never
run.
be long together.
I can never do this alone.
I don't know the words to that song I've just learned. Look, I think it's one of those things where they have a lot of similarities because of the style, because of the music, but fundamentally they're at different ends of the spectrum, and that's what kind of makes them so interesting to listen to, right? Because Tim is about the kind of burnt out, like, guy who was never a successful musician, and because he was that when he started doing the cabaret stuff.
Yeah.
Like, he was unsuccessful, he couldn't get a job, he was just like, there's a really good documentary you can watch on it, I don't know where it's available anymore, it was back in the day, but where you follow him through his journey.
iView.
Maybe, I don't know.
BBC iView.
Yeah, I think it honestly might only be on YouTube now, I'm not sure.
Right.
It's that kind of like old one, like really old documentary, and it follows his journey from like the guy with like the curly hair and the goatee
I think I've seen that,
becoming the Tim Minchin that you see on stage.
I think I saw that on TV.
Yeah, his transition and like the pregnancy, like, difficulties and all of the different ways that he went through the Edinburgh system to become popular and all that stuff. And it's interesting because to me, it's like him and Bo, they effectively would have had the same trajectory if they hadn't grown up at different times. So Tim Minchin, if he had access to the kinds of technology that Bo had, would have become Bo Burnham. But because of the different, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he went the traditional route, which is inherently, wrought with danger and pitfalls and failure. Whereas Bo Burnham went the YouTube route, which is also wrought with pitfalls
Different
and
kinds of
failure,
stuff.
but different kinds of failure. You get flash in the pan fame, whereas
Tim
Minchin's very much been like a gradual
slow burn.
Yeah, a gradual come to fame.
I saw his. We'll talk about So Fucking Rock in a minute. So Fucking Rock. We'll talk about So Fucking Rock in a minute. But I saw Matilda, the musical that he wrote about.
Yeah.
The movie Matilda,
because he did. I saw Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yeah, where he was in that.
He was in that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah, he's a sensational performer.
Yeah, well, he's definitely transitioned into like kind of he's kind of Jeffrey Rush-esque, but just like a bit less famous because he wasn't in Pirates,
Right.
where he's like that kind of, you expect him like, to mention, give him another 20 years and he'll be knighted kind of thing.
Yeah.
Shout out, get on that queen.
You'll be dead in 20 years. No, you won't.
No,
You'll
she
outlive
won't.
all of us.
No, she's gonna
Somehow.
she's still gonna be alive in 20 years.
I guess to me, like it was such a good musical because it had all of the heart and the humor that makes Tim Minchin so interesting as a performer. When you look back at So Fucking Rock, I think it's such a solid piece of material because as a show, it's much more cohesive than a lot of his other stuff. Like I basically I went through and listened and watched to a lot of his old stuff when I was deciding which one we were going to review and analyze because
I think it is the best one. It's the most like sort of standalone, and it's not like Tim Minchin featuring some other people that you don't
very
care
much
about.
like
It's
straight
just,
down the
it's
line.
just Tim Minchin,
and it's him and a piano doing jokes.
yeah, and
it's
like
fun,
a guitar for a little bit, but
and
that doesn't last.
And it's such a nice piece of entertainment because it's so contained with itself, and like the place that you start in isn't the place you end in. Like you go on kind of a journey with Tim throughout that to understand what it's like to be the kind of person who decides to do this with his life. Like that's what the show kind of ends up being about, is like what's it like to be this kind of a performer in this kind of a role, and what's it like to then pretend to be this character who's like a extension of himself, who's like the character in Rock and Roll Nerd.
Yeah.
Who's not really a character at all. Like, it's such an interesting... Whereas Bo Burnham, you don't know whether the character's real or whether he's real. Like, what's happening. Like, it's much more, like, meta.
Yeah, Tim Minchin is it's a lot more, like, straightforward. You're not thinking, like, oh, like, is he really, a sad boy who wish he could play guitar?
Yeah,
it's like,
where
no,
he
he absolutely is.
Yeah,
like,
it's like, I
100%.
fucking picked piano. What a
Yeah,
dickhead.
because he plays piano. Yeah, it's like, there's no... It's a lot more, self-aware, I guess.
I think it's more reflective, I guess, because you could argue that Bo Burnham's material is much more self-aware because it takes a lot of those tropes and a lot of the elements of his character and the person he is off stage and on stage, all those different things, and fucks around with them a lot more. Whereas Tim Minchin is much more like, this is the kind of person I am, and I'm just going to reflect on that and how I've got.
Yeah, because Tim Minchin makes a lot more very direct political statements, especially in some of his songs. So like, he fucks with religion constantly.
He fucks with religion hard.
He makes like I mean, if you haven't gone seen it, it's on YouTube. Just go watch it.
Yeah, you can look it up on YouTube. There's also a copy on Spotify if you want to listen to it. It's pretty good.
I watched it.
Yeah,
but he makes like the peace song for the
peace anthem for Palestine.
Yeah, and it's like. It's about not eating pigs.
Yeah, it's like neither of us eat pigs. Let's not eat pigs together.
Why not eat pigs together?
And like a lot of
ridiculous.
a lot of the whole concept of whenever he does like a political statement or like anything that's a statement, it's all about like how ridiculous all of this shit is. Like it's ridiculous that people think, like, you know what I mean? Like it's never like, oh, I have something to say. It's like, do you realize how insane it is that you're fighting about this?
Oh yeah, it's one of his most recent songs, the Come Home, Cardinal Pell. Yeah, come home.
And it's about God singing from a pub in Ballarat, being like, "Just come on, mate.
Just come home, mate. Just have a drink. Just have a beer.
Have a drink. We seem to know what you
we just want to have a chat, mate."
And it's really great.
No, today Cardinal Pell got charged. Topical.
Really?
It went through. He's
fucking good.
He's been charged for past.
I mean, I think there's an argument to be made that if you defend a pedophile, you should probably go to prison.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the funniest part of that song, the Tim Minchin one, is at the end where he's like, "My lawyers told me I shouldn't have done this, but I'm going to do it anyway because maybe you'll come home and then sue me. You'll come to Australia and sue me,
right? Instead
of coming because you should
for moral
reasons."
Yeah.
But when that came out, because that came out like a few years ago, right at the height of that investigation. Which I guess if you're not Australian, kitty fiddling in the Catholic Church. What's
Yeah,
new?
it's hard to like. It's a weird one because it's
part of that saga.
It's just part of the whole like Australian. I mean, it's Catholicism everywhere.
It's everywhere, you know,
especially
it's
Australia.
It's just part
lately.
of that saga. That was just like a big landmark. 'Cause so many people came out and were like,
which is such a good, and he donated all the money to the victims of those assaults, I believe.
Yeah.
Or a charity that was helping support them, which is good, or to their legal. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But this particular show, I think, works really well for like. There's a lot of reasons, but I think ultimately, the opening song, "So Fucking Rock," is one of those tracks that it's fun, but it's also musically pleasing. Like it's everything you could ask for in an opening track, and it's like what you start to realize is he's saying to the audience, "Look, you know what you're in for. Fucking strap in."
I think it sets up the show very well. Musically, it's not my favorite song because it's kind of a joke in itself.
Yeah, it's a joke.
It's the kind of song that if he just did like a studio version, you'd be like,
this is not good.
This is kind of weird. But when he performs it live with all of the weird intricacies of his character of being like just a weird. Just awkward, a weird guy. Just a weird, awkward
He's
boy.
Just strange and unpleasant to look at sometimes.
It's you know, it looks like it's his first performance on a stage.
He's in like
he's like weird... trying to get audience participation,
and
which is throughout the entire show he's trying.
And he's got like the weird bohemian coat with no shoes on.
Yeah,
like,
he's
the whole
not wearing
affectation
any shoes.
is like
it's
so when he walks out, you're like, oh, okay.
You're like, oh,
it's very much like a middle-aged
weird curly hair redhead. With no shoes, wearing like half a suit and like half like sportswear.
It's like this is what a middle-aged guy who was never a rock star thinks rock stars dress like.
Yeah,
and that's such a nice character. I gotta say though, I think it sets up the show really well, and it does. Inflatable You is my least favorite song.
Really?
For two reasons.
Why? Is it just the timing? I feel like it would be better if it came later.
I've heard it way too many times because it was massive when it came out. So I've heard it too much.
I've heard all of his songs so many times because it's Tim Minchin.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of my exposure to him was through like clips of his live show, not his studio stuff. Just through like YouTube.
Yeah.
Because he has a better live performance than he is
none
studio.
of it. The only studio performance song he has is that Cardinal Pell.
Is the Cardinal Pell one,
and then also another track he did, which is actually my favorite Tim Minchin song of all time, "Drowned."
Right. Yeah.
Which is about like how your love is like being drowned. Anyway, it's a really good song.
Well, because Cardinal Pell was made in response.
Yes.
So we kind of had to. He like threw it together in like a day.
Yeah, they did it in a day.
It's like really obvious as well. It's kind of a shit song.
It's great. I love
it. It's just got a cool message.
But it has something to say.
Yeah.
I guess my problem with Inflatable You is like it's fun, but I don't think it has much to say. Like it's funny.
It's a joke. Yeah.
I don't think it's like I'm not saying everything he does should have a message or anything, but it doesn't say anything. Like even like Rock and Roll Nerd, right? Like it says a lot about the character he's playing. But Inflatable You is just like, how funny would it be if a guy was in love with a fuck girl?
Yeah, I feel like Inflatable You is just, it's straight up just like a penis joke.
Yeah, which is fine.
Just fine.
I just don't know that.
Joke.
And I get that you open the show to
make
prime.
It the second show.
Well, no, I get that you prime. Well, I think it works as a second song because it primes you for the fact that this is going to be a dumb show, so that you're ready to get the dumb stuff, and then when he transitions into the serious stuff, it's like an easier transition. It's like that Bo Burnham song from God's Perspective. Like it's the same function. Where it's like, here's something dumb, and then you suddenly have feelings at the end.
Yeah, well, From God's Perspective is also a dig at sort of religion as well.
Right. Whereas Inflatable You doesn't really do anything.
No, it's just a weird song.
Yeah. Whereas
Inflatable You has his actually no, I think Inflatable You has the arbitrary piano solo in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is something important we should mention is that Tim Minchin is a fucking fantastic
he's an amazing pianist. Yeah, he's
like,
so good.
He is like, in terms of like pianists, he's right up there.
He owns some next level shit, boys and girls.
Yeah, he's
quote. You can put that quote in the newspaper if you want.
It's like a mozzie flying around.
A mosquito. Agreed. Yeah. Do you feel like though? So I have a few choice tracks of this that I really like, and a few that I hate.
You're gonna number them off.
Well, so I don't like so I don't. Let's do.
Inflatable. Okay.
Let's
go
do
song by song.
Let's quickly
like it's an album.
Let's do a hot run through of the different songs, and you yay or nay. We're gonna do like a light.
We're gonna do a yay or nay, like an E3.
Yeah, yay or nay. Okay. So fucking rock.
Yeah.
Inflatable You.
Yeah.
Rock and Roll Nerd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good one.
Mitsubishi Cult.
Oh. That's a long-winded one.
I fucking
That's
like it,
that one runs for 5 minutes and then you get the joke and you're like, okay, Mitsubishi Cult. Yeah. It's funny just because of the context, I guess.
Yeah. 10 Foot Cock and a Few Hundred Virgins.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fucking good.
I love that song.
One of my favorites. If you open your mind too much, your brain will fall out. In parentheses, Take My Wife.
Oh yeah, that's a really short one.
It's
A lot
short
of
and
these
it's
are
fun.
like 30. I'm like, what song was that? It's like, oh, it's that 30-second joke
I just think that one's
of
fun.
a song.
That's just a fun.
That's just a funny one because the parentheses
It's just clever.
It's kind of like Mitsubishi Cult where you're like it's a callback essentially. Like
Mm-hmm.
the whole song just sets up the callback. So yeah, again, in a live performance, it makes it worth it.
So, and then when like you can see the people getting the small jokes, and then the payoff at the end,
And then
it's so
half of the
rewarding.
end, you're like, and my wife, and you're like,
oh, it's clever.
of course,
Yeah.
yeah, that's where it is.
F sharp,
Oh, that fucks with me so hard.
so hard to listen to.
Yeah, it's a really rough one. I like in the live show he mentions that he's like, there's three kinds of people. There's three reactions to that song. There's like musos who think it's hilarious, and they're like they think it's the funny shit around. There's like normal people who are like, yeah, you know, I see what he's doing. It's kind of funny. And then there are people who think it sounds normal.
Ah, nice.
There are people who think it just sounds fine. They don't really get it.
That's horrific.
Yeah.
Canvas bags, which was a big hit.
Oh, Canvas Bags is a classic. I mean,
So
that's like
good.
an Australian anthem.
That's
That's
pretty good.
that. We'll come back to Canvas Bags. I feel like Canvas Bags to me is like is peak Tim Minchin.
We'll circle
We'll
back.
come back to it.
Nothing Can Stop Us Now, which he plays, I think, most shows that he does. No, sorry, that's not the one that he
Just a
plays. most
ripoff
shows.
of Queen.
No, nothing can stop us now except terminal illness or sudden accidental death. It's all about how like when you're in love, you're like unstoppable, except if someone dies suddenly, then you're actually not unstoppable.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of forgettable. Seems I forgot
some
it.
some people have it worse than I, which I fucking love.
Yeah,
That's where it's about his day, and he wakes up at like 11 a.m.
Oh yeah, and it's like at least I'm not
so
a
good.
Palestinian.
Yeah,
bus
I
driver
fucking
on the
love
Gaza
that.
Strip. Yeah.
I love it because he paints such a vivid picture of
Yeah.
being a
You're
full-time
like,
musician.
ooh.
Where he's like, there's ants in the coffee, and like there's no milk, and coffee's bitter. So no, it's like the coffee, like he's got coffee, but the milk's off, and there's ants in the sugar, and the supermarket's a while away, so he just doesn't make himself coffee. Like it's such like an artist thing.
The supermarket's
Yeah.
just a while away.
It's just like a bit too far.
Yeah.
I
good
fucking love that one. If You Really Loved Me, which is great.
Yeah.
If You Really Loved Me, yeah. Peace Anthem for Palestine, which I think
Oh,
we've agreed is
absolutely.
very
Yeah,
good.
it's incredible.
One of my favorite Tim Minchin songs of all time, You Grew on Me, because it's
like a tumor.
it fucking gets you. It gets me every time. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, that is a rough song.
So rough. It's
Yeah.
so rough. Dark Side, which is fun.
Is that's the one where he's like, yeah,
It's the very elaborate one.
Yeah, it's just silly.
Again, Not Perfect, which gets me every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good
There's a
one.
few of those where you're like, feel
You're like, nah, yeah.
Yeah.
I am human, unfortunately.
I have a feeling now, and I have to deal with this feeling. Okay, so Canvas Bags, you had something to say about that one.
So,
Explain to me why you think that's quintessential Tim Minchin.
so Canvas Bags is this kind. It's this weird.
Justify your argument. Provide evidence. Cite sources.
It's a power anthem, right? It's written as this like, you learn the words after literally the first time
It's
the
like a
chorus
Celine
is sung.
Dion chorus.
Kind
of
and
thing.
like he literally like pulls out a fan and starts blowing it into his face and like rips his shirt off and he's like awkward about this. It's presented as this power anthem about like, it would sit alongside like I don't know, like any good Queen song or something like that as like this like, this big protest song, and it's about fucking taking canvas bags to the supermarket, which is this weird, like weirdly Australian thing that's been going on for the past like decade.
Yeah,
Where we've had this where like everyone fucking has these bags.
everyone.
Everyone
Has like 50 of them, and they never use them.
And never use. Yeah, no, that's the thing. No one fucking uses them. Like everyone has so many of them, but we still use so many plastic bags, and like plastic bags are always going to be a thing. But like like every country has like a different solution. Like paper bags in some places, like no bags in other places.
Yep.
Like Aldi is just like boxes. You're like, well, okay.
Yeah. Aldi's like, pack your own box, you bitch.
Yeah, Aldi is like, fuck off.
Aldi's
but,
like, we don't pay our checkout people enough.
But
so
like
they don't do
canvas
any work.
bags have always just been like a weird, like
weird, dude.
You'd use canvas bags for everything, but
Yeah,
like,
you take them on a
supermarkets.
fucking picnic, but you don't take them to the supermarket.
yeah, and it was
It's
this,
ridiculous.
It's this weird thing where he's presenting this like song that everyone can get behind. It's like, take your canvas bags. It's cool to do. I don't know. Like canvas bags to me is just such a ridiculous, like, you have like if you have like Americana, this idea of Americana, which is like fucking whatever, like cowboys, I don't fucking know.
Good summary.
Racism, guns, I don't know. But then you have like Australiana,
Yeah.
and it's like thongs, flip flops, like what fucking Bunnings sausage sizzles,
Yep.
and like Woolies canvas bags. Like that's Australia.
That's a really good summary.
Like that's like
no,
the
you're
three,
you're
the-
100% right.
It's like you have like the what is it, like the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and you've thongs, Bunnings sausage sizzle, and canvas bags.
Pretty
Like,
much. No, yeah. You missed out VB, which is like somewhere in there.
No one drinks VB.
4X, whatever.
No one drinks 4X.
The Milton Mango, bro. Okay, the fucking Milton Mango. Maybe Cooper's is more iconic. I don't know. But I guess no, you're right. Like I think it's so ridiculous, but it represents a portion of the world so well, and I think that's what a lot of like Tim's work does, right?
Yeah.
Like you look at I don't know. You look at any of his songs. Let's pick one out of the hat. So let's do that beat poem, Mitsubishi Cult, right?
Sure.
That perfectly encapsulates a portion of interactions people have when they talk to people. Like, okay, so this.
If you're someone doing like.
If you're in any
like
creative industry,
journalism,
if you're in any creative industry, and then you talk to someone who's rich and successful,
They're like.
it's that exact conversation distilled into one microbe of Tim's life. Whether it happened is irrelevant, but it's a really perfect distillation of a ridiculous thing that happens, and he makes it more ridiculous by ending it in the way that it ends. But I think it's such a tight representation of a particular thing, and that's what he does super well. Like, it's funny, it's representative, and it makes you think a bit. And I think that's why 99% of his songs work. If You Really Loved Me, not If You Really Loved Me.
If You Grow on Me?
Sorry?
If you grow on,
You Grew on Me.
Yeah.
Again, another really like good encapsulation of like, it starts off, you think it's a joke song, and then you suddenly realize you're like,
I'm being taught something.
and when you realize that, you're like, oh yeah, I've had parasitic relationships like this, and you know, it's overblown and it's a ridiculous metaphor, but it makes a really good point, which is that like you should actually look out for yourself, and you should keep an eye out for when people want to treat you less than you're worth.
And he does the opposite sometimes, where he'll start a song off as being something like super serious and important, like the fucking peace song for Palestine.
Yeah.
And it'll just turn into some ridiculous concept where you're just like, sure, whatever, I'm okay with this.
And it's so ridiculous to the point where you're like, but actually what he's saying, like it's not wrong. Like, because it's not about the pigs.
They don't eat pork.
It's
like,
not about the pigs,
it's
right?
Not about the pork.
What he's saying is like, we're all people, why are we killing each other?
Yeah.
But because it's about pigs, it's so funny. Like, it's so funny. And I think that's what he does so well. And this show in particular, it's just like, I think it's a perfect distillation of like, what point do you have to get to as like a middle-aged person who was a failed rock star, who gets into this position, and then when you do have stuff to say, how else are you going to say it but through that veil? And I think that it's such an accessible way to communicate a message. And I don't know, it makes me think that people in positions where they need to communicate those kind of ideologies that are good for everyone, like, you know, the subtext of that peace anthem for Palestine is like, don't kill each other. Like, that's fucking dumb.
Just
stop it.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
just don't eat pork together.
just, it's fine. Like, don't worry about it. And like Bo Burnham's song, From God's Perspective, is like the same message. Where it's like, it's fine. God like probably doesn't like us very much. Let's just agree to stop hurting each other. Like, that's a good message. But Tim Minchin makes it so accessible to go, maybe that's a really good point about religion, or maybe that's a really good point about the way that rich people kind of talk down to artists, or maybe that's a really good point about how we treat our spouses, and whatever it is, it makes it accessible, and it feels like you're being treated with respect because he's gone to the effort to package it in a way that's digestible. I think a lot of communicators could learn a fucking thing or two about that. You know, like, not to bring up Gamergate or anything.
Oh no!
The double G.
Oh, how'd you pull that off?
Well, because Anita Sarkeesian's been in the news a bunch lately because of VidCon. And there's a big lesson to be learned from the way that she conducts herself, and I'm not, I think what she does is great, and I think she represents a.
Did you back her Kickstarter?
No. Let me finish. Don't fucking ruin this, okay? Don't get us fucking unsubscribed. I was trying to make a nuanced point. She could learn a thing or two about like, how do you package those opinions in a way that people are going to accept instead of just yelling at people and just abusing people and trying to bully away into position. I understand from a position of weakness, you sometimes don't have a choice. You do have to force that. But I think a lot of people, if they want to get their point across, yelling at the other side doesn't work. We learned from the most recent American elections that if you just scream at the other side that they're wrong, they're just going to fucking double down.
Well, they'll just stop listening, really.
Yeah,
it's just like, well, they're just going to keep saying the same thing, so I'm just going to, like, not listen.
Yeah, whereas, like, with Tim Minchin and this show, I think, does a really good job of this. It's where like, you say to yourself, it's ridiculous and it's funny, and you have that moment where you go, yeah, he's kind of got a point. Like, that is kind of silly and
like,
ridiculous.
I don't think anyone could really, like, I wanted to talk about the comedy stuff that he puts between his songs, because I did prefer this over Bo Burnham stuff.
Yeah.
At least just the raw, like 100%, he's just throwing jokes out.
Doing comedy.
I thought that was sort of a lot better than Bo Burnham's stuff,
Yeah.
mainly just because it's a bit easier to just kind of digest. It's a bit less structured.
Well, it's less of like a pinpoint precision put together piece. Which is
you
what
don't
all
have
of
to
Bo's
think
stuff.
as much with some of it. And like, honestly, most of I think a lot of Bo Burnham's funniest stuff is his improv stuff, especially when he's dealing with hecklers. I think Bo Burnham deals with hecklers.
There's some really good
well.
compilations on YouTube of Bo Burnham dealing with hecklers.
Oh yeah, he's so fucking witty when
He
it
does
comes to
a really
hecklers.
good one on the Make Happy Netflix special, where I think someone tells him to take his shirt off, and he's like, "Oh, what? You think that's funny?" Like, he's like, "Don't objectify me," and then someone's like, then a guy yells out, "Take your shirt off," and then everyone laughs, and he's like, "What? You think it's funny because he's a guy? That's homophobic." Like, it's just such like he's.
I know there's
on it.
one where
So on it.
where he's like, this one's called I fuck sluts, and then it's like a girl like cheers in the audience, and he's just like, that wasn't a roll call.
Yeah, he's like,
but
not a roll
thank
call.
you." Yeah.
Such a good, yeah.
But like Tim mentioned, he sort of the biggest bit he does in this this section is like his dark humor skit.
Yep.
He talks about his wife and his kid and how, he
It's
thinks
so funny.
he thinks his kid is a lesbian.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
like,
it's about like when
it's about dark humor mainly.
it's also about like sexism as well, because it's like
Yeah,
like it's
to a
like
degree.
it's like about sexism and like why he's the way he is.
yeah.
Because people are like, "Oh my god, your wife must feel so bad being subjected to all this sexist stuff," and he's like, "She made me.
She
like
made me like
And that's
this,
such
yeah.
a nice like, because if you watch anything with his wife in it, like you get it. You're like, of course.
Yeah.
Who else would be
You're
with
like,
him?
yeah, absolutely.
So it makes sense. So that it's like, and it's like a nice way to like turn the mirror back on people who review it and are like, that's really sexist, and be like, interrogate deeply where that idea comes from.
Yeah.
And why you think it's sexist and what about it makes you think it's sexist.
And I think it sort of looks at how, if anyone who goes to a Tim Minchin show probably won't get offended. Like, even though he deals with a lot of really racy topics, he packages it up in such a way where he's like, look, just he somehow tells the audience to just not be offended. It's just like, don't be offended for the next 10 minutes. Here's some horrible fucking jokes. Let's go to some songs.
He does it so self-reflexively as well. Like, he'll say before a song, he's like, one of my favorite Tim Minchin jokes ever is it's during one of the recordings that isn't on Spotify. I think it's on the iTunes store, of So Fucking Rock, where just before the 10 Foot Cock and a Few Hundred Virgins song, he's like, if anyone adheres to any of the primary monotheistic doctrines, any of the big ones, the top 5 or whatever, the big 5, maybe just pop out for 5 minutes, and then he plays the song. Like, it's such a nice, like, and everyone goes, haha, and it's like, yeah, you can't get offended because what he's doing is he's acknowledging that it's offensive. But and it makes it acceptable for you to not be offended, so that as it happens, you're able to actually appreciate what's occurring, instead of being like, that's offensive, that's offensive, that's offensive. You're like, why is it offensive? Why should I be offended? Oh, maybe I shouldn't be offended. It's fucking dumb that I'm offended.
Yeah, and even if you start to break down the lyrics in songs like 10,000 Virgins, it's like you sort of, you pull it apart and you look at it and you go, okay, what part of this is offensive? And you're like, kind of none of it. Like, it skirts the line that Bo Burnham doesn't really do, where Bo Burnham will, in some instances, just flat out say that, like, this is wrong. Like, this is fucked. The only time that Tim Minchin does that is when something is absolutely fucked. Like, like protecting pedophiles, which is really the only instance where he's gone out of his way to like basically like rip into someone or a group of people. Even in songs like 10,000 Virgins and like, I was literally just had the thought. But songs like that, they don't really throw insults at a group. They just kind of like, they just present a certain point of view.
Well, they show you the idea in context.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the thing that religion struggles with, is to give you context for an idea.
Yeah.
So, I was on it was actually the night that I bought these lights. I was trolling the internet for...
When David was drunk.
No one knows
and
the
bought
backstory.
these lights.
When I get drunk, I buy studio equipment.
Studio equipment.
So I bought these lights because I was like, we need lights because I'm...
We would like to thank Han Superdrive for these lights.
Thank you, Han Superdrive.
Sponsoring
Go
the show.
to www.hansuperdrive.com/DCMworks to get
To get
your
studio
comically
lights.
large studio light adequate to scale bottle. If you're a Patreon above $6, I will save one of these bottles and we will mail it to you
Really?
if they want it.
Sure. If you want an empty bottle.
Let me know. There's a few of you. Hit me up, baby. I don't know. I have no idea. I now get really fucking derailed by that. When I was surfing the internet that night, I was watching Neil Tyson stuff, astrophysics or whatever, and I stumbled onto some like Richard Dawkins stuff, who I agree with less because of his package and all that shit.
Yeah.
But he had this really interesting conversation with this Muslim guy, and this Muslim guy who's like a scientist and he's well informed, and he's an educated journalist, believed that Muhammad rode into heaven on a unicorn, like on a winged horse. Sorry, it's not a unicorn.
Right. So
Sorry,
Pegasus.
that's the story of the Islamic faith.
right.
That Muhammad ascended to the heavens on a winged horse.
A unicorn.
And it's not a unicorn. It doesn't have a horn.
Okay.
I misspoke. And Richard Dawkins was like, but you... No, but he's like, but you don't believe that, right? Like, you know that that's not real. And he's like, well, I have faith in... I have faith in the Muslim religion. And Richard Dawkins is like, yeah, but like... You can't...
Do you believe that story?
He's like, but you can't actually believe that literally happened. I think Tim Minchin does a really good job of being like, if he did a song about that, he wouldn't be like, it's ridiculous you think that. He'd be like,
he would almost like make like a radio play of like the Bible.
He'd act it out.
Yeah.
Well, he has a really great bit. It's not in this show, which I know we're talking about the show. It's a really awesome bit about evolution where he talks about, he's like, the Bible tells us not, this is, he hits on the Bible a little bit. And then he's like, because evolution, he's like, I want to believe in the Bible, but like evolution's so awesome. Like it's so exciting to me and it's beautiful and it's amazing. But like, and he goes, but could you imagine to be the first dude ever to have feet? A whole new appendage. And it's this bit where he minds being a fish, swimming around with a school of people. And he's the fish called Tony. And he's like,
right.
And Tony's like, yeah guys, I'm just going to pop out and lie on my towel for a bit. I'm just cold. And they're like, what are you talking about, Tony? And he's
like, I'm just getting a bit cold.
He pretends to be a fish and he swims up and then he jumps and he goes, and he has feet. And then he sits down and he goes, and Tim's like, could you imagine going to school the next day with a whole new appendage? When I went to school, I got teased for having a wrong hat. Could you imagine having feet? Like, it's this great bit where you go, oh yeah, it is ridiculous that people don't believe in evolution.
Also, that's not how evolution works. But
but that's the argument that a lot of creationists will use. Is they're like, well, how did it happen?
Right.
Measure,
yeah.
Because it's for a lot of people, it's inconceivable that something so complex could happen over such a long time in such a simple way. Because obviously, it's simple steps that make it complex.
Yeah,
But they want it to be bang explanation.
Right. Yeah.
Dude flicks on the light switch.
They don't want to have. Yeah. They don't want to. They don't want to have to in a few billion years.
And it's hard for people to interrogate that kind of thinking because it's not natural to us, right? We don't live in a world where things happen over millions of years.
Yeah.
In the same way that we don't live in a world where, like, quantum physics happens. Matter doesn't turn into light spontaneously because it's not the world we live in.
Yeah.
So you can understand why people are like, I don't understand. It's hard for me to comprehend.
Right.
So I guess, I don't know. I like that Tim Minchin brought to the world and to the conversation a brand of humor and a brand of conversation that is accessible to people that don't necessarily engage with that kind of thought process often.
Yeah, and he hits like a wide range as well. Like he's not just like a one-hit wonder or like he doesn't just keep punching the same bag. Like he doesn't just like go all in on religion and then go all in on religion again. He'll touch religion a bit and then be like, canvas bags time.
Yeah, plastic bags.
We're going to start singing about canvas bags.
Exactly.
And then he will go back to like relationships and the fact that he's married the same girl that he dated in like high school, which is hilarious
just in general.
And he will bounce around all these topics, and you'll never come out of it going like, man, he really like fucked with a bunch of people. You're like, man, that was a good time.
Like, I feel like I learned something and I have fun.
He was real deep because he ended with that deep song that he always ends with.
There's Not Perfect and then White Wine in the Sun. So Not Perfect makes me feel, White Wine in the Sun makes me fucking cry. Like, but yeah, he has such great sense for when he does do those serious songs. They do feel authentic. I think.
Absolutely.
That might be a good place to end the show. Ben, you got any recommendations for the people at home? What have you been peeping this week?
Oh, I spent all of last night reading a weird internet story called the Interface series, also known by like the name Mother Horse Eyes, which is just give it a peek. It's a good old time.
Go read it.
Just go read it. It's weird. It's on Reddit for context. Yeah.
Go peep. Just Google it. It'll come up. I've been watching. Well, I've been playing the new Darkest Dungeon DLC, but I've also been watching You, Me, Her, which is this like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's basically like it's not a sitcom. It's like a drama about this like suburban successful couple who start dating an escort. And it's really
Like both of them?
yeah, it's really clever and it's so interesting. And it explores like polyamory and all that kind of thing and like
Right.
how that like
Interesting.
yeah, it's such a interesting thing. Like they've written it in such an
Super taboo.
yeah, and they do such a good job of it because it never feels like they're being like, oh, we're edgy. They're just like,
Right.
it's a thing that no one ever talks about.
Where is it?
It's on Netflix.
Netflix? Huh, I might give it a watch.
That's worth checking out.
Yeah.
And everyone in it is like super attractive, which helps.
Oh, that's just a bonus. Yeah.
And it's got that guy from can't remember the show, but it's the golf show that was on. It was an English golf show. I can't remember. It's not important. That was a really bad.
Jude Law.
No, it's not Jude Law. It's an Indian dude. It's not important.
All
but
right.
he's in it, and he's everyone in it's very good and very funny. It's really it's a fun show, and I really enjoy it.
Cool.
So go check that out. It's on Netflix if you want to watch that. But otherwise, Ben, it's that time of the week. Where can people find us?
Facebook.
DCM Works Social
Twitter.
at DCM_Works.
Facebook again.
It's still DCM Works Social.
YouTube.
YouTube.com/DCMworks. If you're listening on the audio, go check out our new lighting setup on
Yeah,
YouTube.
it looks nice.
Go